Hello, my name is Atul Pandey and I'm the founder of Eternity Solutions. Thank you for taking the time and joining this podcast, where we discuss different nuances of building a purpose native organization. The podcast is targeted towards founders and CXOs who are looking to create new growth for their businesses. And we are targeted towards small and mid-sized tech services organizations, but this podcast is also applicable to a business leader in a larger tech services company. Today, I want to talk about an aspect connected to building a high performance, high productive, growing organization, which is about the heart of this business, people. And perhaps the most neglected and most underserved entity, despite whatever CXOs believe that they are doing. Let me share a few thoughts and observations for you to introspect and see where are you placed with your own approach when it comes to people. In most cases, whenever we talk about performance of people and helping them tap into their potential, believe me, almost everyone doesn't get it. In most cases, it is tied to traditional L&D or the investments which you are making to make people feel good. It ain't sufficient. And that is not what tapping the full potential means. That is not how you create high-performing teams. A high-performing team doesn't need to be incentivized. It runs on its own incentive to perform better. It cannot be done by throwing money. It cannot be done by lecturing. It cannot be done by traditional trainings. It cannot be done by just making them go and subscribe to 20 other best practices and perspectives. It doesn't work that way. And I'm telling this to you from my own experience, having done this several times before. You have to deal with this subject in a very different way. Because most of the times, CXOs don't get it. And despite trying their best, there are many gaps. And today, I'm going to talk about a spectrum, what I see with respect to how different CXOs are targeting this. And my purpose is not to downplay the intent, not to also unrecognize a lot of passion and spirit with which the CXOs and the founders try to build a high performance team. But what I want to raise awareness about is some of the misses or some of the gaps in the approach which they are taking. So let me put the spectrum first. There are two ends of the spectrum, what I see. One end of the spectrum is where I see founders trying to create a very welcoming and a very open environment. And I'm talking about small to mid-sized teams where typically the founders and the CXOs, they are very tightly involved and closely associated with the teams who they are building. And they take a lot of pride in creating a culture which is welcoming, which is empathetic, which is where they want to celebrate each other's, successes and key moments. And they do try to invest in recognizing people for what they bring to the table. However, despite making all those investments, when I actually see the people, they don't exude a high degree of performance. They don't exude a high degree of professional productivity. And by the way, no one frankly measures the productivity. They focus on work getting done. They focus on a project getting delivered without any issues or escalations. A project where client is saying, yeah, you guys are doing a good job. And as long as that is happening, it feels like we have a very good team. It feels like we have a highly performing team, and it feels like, oh, we got it. On the other end of the spectrum, I see there are CXOs and founders were very dissatisfied with their teams. Outwardly, they would project as if they have got it, they have a good team, they are differentiated, they have the capabilities, but inwardly, and when you speak to them in a more honest setting, they start to open up and you feel that they can see that what's missing. But when it comes to addressing these gaps, it resorts to a few traditional methods. Talk to them, set the expectations, keep having reviews, exactly tell them what needs to be done, and then keep becoming honest with them, tell them what's not working, set the expectations. Sounds familiar? But guess what? Many a times it doesn't work most of the times it doesn't work. And then founders are scratching their heads, and then the alternatives are being exercised. And they're not wrong. If they're not seeing the results, if they're not seeing the productivity, if they're not seeing the performance, what would they do? They cannot keep on carrying a financial liability without that changing for them. So in many cases, either they let the people go, or people also, because of their own reasons, they decide to leave. So it's a chicken and an egg situation, because in this other end of the spectrum, founders are constantly looking for expecting a high performance. They're communicating about the need to step up, but they're not able to still get it done. Then there is a third category, which is somewhere in middle. And that category is, they carry the burden. They believe that whatever they have got, what can you do? They are trying their best. And as long as some projects are, coming, they continue to keep harboring and keep bearing a low performing team. And in all these cases, what CXOs are missing are some of the very foundational questions about what drives human performance. What drives an individual performance? What does it take for you to really understand, first of all, the promise of your team and looking at it in an honest way? In most cases, founders, because they are themselves so busy, taking care of so many other things, especially if it is a small to mid-sized organizations, most of the times founders are also involved in right from selling to pitching to ideating to also reviewing the projects, reviewing the client success. And no wonder they hardly have time to think about and deliberate about this important question in a thoughtful and in a deliberate way. So they hardly have any think time. And therefore, it's natural that the need for high performance never goes away. And if you don't spend time in terms of addressing it in the right way, making it a little bit more internal, you would not be able to solve it. And that's why at Eternity, when we think about helping CXOs build a purpose native organization and unlocking people's performance, we don't take it in a traditional way. We are not into trainings and coachings and any traditional method in which performance is typically looked to be delivered. You can't create a high performing team through external stimuli alone. I'm not discounting the need for external stimuli and keeping your eyes and ears open to the environment and absorbing and embracing every fabric of knowledge which comes at your disposal. But we work on something which is much more fundamental, which is opening the receptivity gateways of people. Because if they are not receptive, if it is not coming from within, whatever amount of training, enablement, coaching you can do, it will be a wishy-washy exercise, or it will not be effective as much as you believe it to be effective. And therefore, for us, it's not about bragging how many certifications you did. It's not about telling that we got it. That's bare bones, that's bare minimum. Everyone does it. But just because you have certifications, just because you have enablement, just because you have somebody who can speak well, does it mean that you have a high performing team? Take a pause, think about it. Because creating a high performance team is first about understanding in a very honest way what performance really is for your teams. What are you really measuring? How are you defining it? And how are you then understanding where your team, and starting with people, where are they in unlocking that performance? What is your own role in it? These are some of the fundamental questions which we address first before we co-design a path which works for you. And therefore, our approach is not to give you the same template. We may use similar principles, same principles, but the way it would be applied in your particular case is going to be determined by where you are and what are your blockages as far as the performance is concerned. If you're interested in knowing more, start a conversation with us and let us investigate it together to help you design a way in which you can really unlock the performance of your teams and create a new chapter of growth. Thank you for taking the time. In next version of this podcast, we'll touch upon another important aspect connected to building a purpose native organization. Till then, take good care of yourself and talk to you soon.